Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, my name is Utpala, and we are about to begin our first class of course, foundational course 8, which is on death and the realms of existence. Before we get started, I have a little something to go through that Asian Classics Institute asks me to share with you. So, as a certified ACI teacher, I am not a religious figure, such as a lama or a priest, and no such relationship is implied between us at an ACI program. It is your right as a student to engage in a religious relationship with any other person if you choose to do so, according to the laws of the country of which you are a citizen. And while I am a fully ordained nun in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, ACI itself and ACI courses are not associated with any particular organized religion, including Buddhism. As is customary for my religion, I will lead the verbal recitation of Buddhist prayers before and after class, and I'll do the mudras, the hand gestures associated with those prayers. As an ACI student, you are not expected or required to participate in those prayers or gestures, and you are most welcome to join me. Asian Classics Institute respects the policies of all governments. For this reason, ACI cannot accept any registrations for online programs from people who live in places where ACI is not permitted. For example, ACI teachings are not permitted in mainland China. ACI also blocks Zoom access to and from mainland China for this reason, to respect their laws. ACI also does not endorse any efforts made to circumvent any government policies, such as using a virtual private network. ACI highly discourages anyone from trying to do so, as this may put you in danger. If ACI discovers that you are using these technologies, ACI will remove you from the Zoom call. Respecting government policies and laws helps protect students and teachers everywhere. More generally, ACI requires me, as a certified ACI teacher, to ensure that I am not violating the laws of any country, of the country of any student who attends Zoom classes with me. Due to the nature of Zoom classes, I personally do not know who is attending my teachings, much less what country you reside in. So I ask you to please assist me. If the laws of your country or region allow your participation in ACI classes and also regulate in any way the expression of religious beliefs, please reach out to me personally. I need to understand and get copies of these laws so I can be sure to follow them. So you can reach me at, there's my handle on Telegram, and here's my email. A few words about the Tibetan language. I've been a student of these teachings in the lineage of Je Tsongkhapa since 1995, and I endeavored to pass them along as they were taught to me. The vast majority of the teachers I've had over the years have shared these concepts with me using the Tibetan language. I'm also studying to be a translator of Tibetan texts into English since 2017. Since the most comprehensive collection of the Buddhist teachings that exist on this planet are in the Tibetan language, and since the language itself is at very high risk of disappearing from the planet, I will continue the tradition of sharing the Tibetan language with you, with the motivation of keeping this language alive so that the precious teachings are not lost. I will ask you on occasion to repeat some Tibetan words and phrases, and you are free to engage or not. I'll just mention that in my first classes as a student, I hand wrote. I was handwriting then. We didn't have laptop computers. I'm really old. I was handwriting notes, and so I would do my best to copy the script that the Lama wrote on the whiteboard. And while those notes are illegible to me now, I can't read that script. I can't read what I was drawing. I think I was planting seeds to have an interest in and to study this language, even though I had no desire at the time to learn it. So if you join me in repeating the pronunciation of Tibetan words and phrases, hopefully it will plant seeds in you to help save this language, which is so important to the planet. It really is. So all ACI programs are offered for free. And although ACI may charge to recover the costs associated with supporting and offering teaching programs, my understanding is that ACI does not charge anything for the courses that I teach over Zoom. I offer these teachings freely and receive no financial compensation from ACI for doing so. All the lovely live translators who are with us every class, they are volunteering their time. I just am in awe of the karmic seeds that they're planting by doing this service to all of us. And there are many people associated with ACI who are volunteering to support this course, helping to organize people who register, monitoring the chats in Telegram, sending reminders, advertising for the event. So there are many things that occur that are given freely by many, many different people. And so I just want to acknowledge all these people and rejoice in what they're doing. And if I had a big bag of gold, I would share it with all of them. I don't have a big bag of gold, but I do share as much as I can every month with Asian Classics Institute, and I hope that that also goes to people who are serving. So you may wish to join me in making donations to Asian Classics Institute, and you can do so on their website. It is a tradition of Buddhism from the very early days in India that people would make donations to the Buddha, and that continued on over these millennia. It's like there's a symbiotic relationship. If we as students can offer support in whatever way we can, whether it's doing live translation or offering food or however we can, we are creating the causes in ourselves. Those actions that we do create the causes for the teachings to be possible. Everyone needs to be able to live, to have food to eat, to have a place to live. And by us as students supporting our teachers, let's not make it as small as just supporting a teacher. We can make it big. We can make our donations as small as they may be. It doesn't matter. It can be $1. In our minds, we can think of that dollar as being far more than that, and we can have the motivation that the teachings never disappear from this world, that everyone who wishes to learn what the Buddha taught, to have guidance in their practice so that they can be free of suffering. May it be so with my donation. So we can make, and we do plant that seed in our minds to have the experience of being with a teacher. So, there's no teacher without students. There's no student without a teacher, by definition, right? So we as students help, not only help, but we make it possible. We make it possible for there to be teachers in our life. Okay. If you would like to join me in doing prayers, you are most welcome. Sashi Puki Chukshin Mito Tram Rira Blingshin Inde Gempadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uarki Jokun Namdak Shinla Tuparsho Idam Guru Ratnamandala Kamyatayami. Sange Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Jinyin Yipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinshir Sanye Drupasho Sange Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Jishe Kipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Upasho Sangye Churan Soki Chuknam La Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Jinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Upasho. So this course, Death and the Realms of Existence, we're going to be diving into the Buddhist cosmology, what Shakyamuni Buddha and those who followed taught about, what makes up our world, what does our world look like, uh, where are we, how did we come into being, will we go out of existence, what kind of living beings are there, what's their situation like. I'm going to show this picture. We're going to come back to it. Oops. In a little bit, but just to give you a preview. Oops. So there's like a pictorial representation of what our world looks like. We have our planet here, and my cursor is probably too small. So let me make it a little bit bigger. Sorry, I should have done this before class started. Especially since I don't remember where exactly I do that. Yeah, I can't find it. Anyway, hopefully you can see. Here's Mount Meru. We have all these kinds of beings down here, all this stuff going on. at the bottom of the page, mountains and fire. And then up above are other realms of existence. And we have enlightened beings also in attendance, but outside of the world. So that's just a sneak preview of what the world looks like from the Buddhist point of view. We're mainly in this course going to be reading from the Abhidharma. And the Abhidharma is it is like ancient text. It is as old as the Vinaya, or the teachings on ethics and morality. It is the very first of the 4 Buddhist philosophical schools. The first being the Vaibhashika, or as Geshe Michael translates it, the detailist school. And that the great work that school uses is called the Abhidharma Kosha. And we're going to be using a commentary on that text by the very first Dalai Lama. And he was also a student of Jetsun Kappa's. He was an incredible teacher. So the Abhidharma Kosha is basically a very old book that is a collection of older books. And it explains Buddhism in great detail. That's why Geshe Michael calls it, that school, the detailists. This school likes to make lists, like, here are the 3 realms. And in each of the realms, there are different kinds of beings. And here's what all those kinds of beings are. Like that. And so the first chapter covers parts of a person and a person's mind. The second chapter discusses like all the energies we have within us. The third chapter talks about the universe and time and space and galaxies, and how did the world start and where did it come from. The fourth chapter, if you took ACI course 5 with me, it has the best presentation on karma or seeds from anywhere. The fifth chapter is a presentation on mental afflictions, negative emotions, all the different kinds of bad thoughts and how they function. And then later chapters talk about meditation and how we can liberate ourselves from samsara. So this text was written about 1600 years ago, almost 1700 years ago. And it was written by Master Vasubandhu. So in this course, we're going to start off today with covering 2 of the 3 realms. So according to Buddhism, there are 3 realms of existence in the realm of suffering existence. And those 3 realms are the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. And we'll be covering the first 2 tonight. The second class, we're going to talk about the formless realm and the different kinds of rebirth, how you can take rebirth after this life is finished, how it's possible to know what rebirth you're going to take, how can one direct their rebirth. Our third class, we're going to cover what it's like to have 2 different kinds of rebirth. We're going to talk about sorry, I'm getting to the Tibetan here. We're going to talk about what it's like to have a rebirth as a yidak, or in Sanskrit, preta, or in English, craving spirit. That's one of the ways that we can take rebirth in the desire realm. And then we're going to talk about how to take what it's like, not how to take, because we don't want to take rebirth as a craving spirit or as an animal, but we're going to talk about what it's like for those beings, what existence is like for those beings. Class 4 comes from a text called the Tenrim Chenmo, written about 800 years ago. And it was lost for a very long time and was found only in the early 1990s, late 1980s. Someone found a copy in Siberia, of all places. And that book, the Tenrim Chenmo, was the basis for the Lamrim Chenmo, which is another book we're going to study from. That's considered, I think, the greatest book ever written in Tibet, describing the whole path from the very beginning up until enlightenment. What steps do we need to follow to reach our goal? Lays it out very clearly. And some of you have studied that text with Geshe Michael or other courses through ACI, but it's our go-to book. The fourth class, we're going to talk about the life of human beings. And then we're also going to talk about these beings called pleasure beings. And what life is like for them, and what their world is like. And then that material is coming from a book by the first Panchen Lama, who lived in the 1570s to 1600s. Very great scholar. And we're going to study from a commentary by Ngulchu Dharma Bhadra, who lived about 200 years ago another very important author and practitioner, especially if you are entering the Diamond Way. He is a great master in our lineage. In the 5th class, we're going to talk about what they call the bardo. Bardo. And that means an intermediate state. So there's, we have our life, which starts from the Buddhist idea, starts when the egg and the sperm touch. That's when this life began. Through our birth, through our getting older, and through our death. When this collection of this bag of bones and skin, when this dies, and then we take another birth after that. The mind never ends. We will take another birth. We talked about that in the last course we had together. But there's this period of time in between the death or the ending of this life and then the coming together of the sperm and egg of our parents in our next life. And we're going to talk about what that intermediate state is like. What kind of body do they have? What do they do? What's going on during that period of time? Most of the teachings about the Bardo are in the Diamond Way, which we don't talk about in a public forum. But so what we'll be talking about is on a general basis. Our 6th class, we're going to talk about, excuse me, the things we living beings, what we use to sustain our lives, our sustenance, our food, our energy. Food is only one way of sustaining the body. That's covered in the Abhidharma. And it's very interesting. We'll take a look at that in class 6. Class 7 is going to cover the hells, the Buddhist concept of hell, what they're like, what those beings are like, how we get there, how do we get out. Class 8 is it'll be like a science fiction class, almost. We're going to talk about time and space. The Abhidharma describes time down to milliseconds, shortest periods of time, up to countless eons. The time in which world systems come into and go out of existence. So we're going to, they call it Kalpa. Kalpa. It's an eon. And we're going to talk about how many years is that? And, how the world comes into being, how it goes out of existence. How often do Buddhists come to worlds? Things like that. Our last 2 classes will be from the Lamrim Chenmo. And this will be about how to meditate on death. It's a very important practice to contemplate, meditate on death. So we'll be talking about how we can do that. So as you all probably know, we have homeworks and quizzes and a final exam associated with each of the foundation courses, of which, again, this is course 8. The homeworks are not very challenging. You can get them from the readings. I will, of course, be covering what's on the homeworks in the classes. If you're on the Tibetan track, which you don't need to be, but you are welcome to be, there are questions related to the Tibetan language that you can share. And this document that I'm sharing with you right now, that will be available to you on the platform. If you've taken, I know some people take these foundation courses more than once, from different people, which is really great. And the Tibetan sheet that comes with this course from years and years ago is very brief. So you'll see that the Tibetan that I share with you has a lot more words in it. So what I try to do is, I listened through when Geshe Michael taught the course, and I find all of the Tibetan words and phrases that he shared when he taught the course. So that's why you'll see a lot more in my Tibetan document that I provide for the course than in the one that was originally provided, which is just like the important concepts, like what's on the quiz versus what's on the homework, right? The quiz is just a subset of the questions from the homework. So the Tibetan document that was given when the course was first taught is like a subset of all the words that Geshe Michael shared when he taught the course. So I just do it again because my motivation is to preserve this language. And so that's just my little part. So these courses provide a really great survey of Buddhism. It doesn't happen so much anymore in Tibet. At other countries, there is some, like in India and a few in the United States, of monasteries where men and women who become monks or nuns can go to study the Buddhist teachings. In Vietnam, there are some, and even in China, there are some. But the course of study that particularly monks would go through, they're a misogynist country, Tibet was. But there are other countries that are giving or allowing women to have the full course of study. For example, in India and the United States. And I think in Vietnam as well, Indonesia. So anyway, this is part of what would be like a full Geshe course. And Geshe is a degree, like a master's degree or a doctorate degree. And Geshe So you'll go through, hopefully, the readings, the homeworks, the quizzes, and then the final exam. I encourage you to at least do the homeworks as we go along. I know there's not much time between our two classes during the week, Wednesdays and Fridays, Arizona time. But there's certainly time between Friday and Wednesday to do a homework, or maybe two. So I encourage you to do that. And then, of course, if you have questions from the readings and the homework, then we can talk about those in the next class, okay? So the idea of these courses is twofold. One, so that we get a clear and correct presentation of the Buddhist teaching for our own lives, so that we can, so that we, so we understand how the world works. We understand how things have no nature of their own, from their own side. That things like this thing is may look to us like a pen, but it's not a pen from its side. It's a pen because we are projecting a mental image onto an object that our eye sees as only color and shape. And this projection, this mental image, comes from the ripening of a karmic seed that flowers into that experience of a mental image. And that seed, or that potential, came into existence through how we treat other people in the past. So through these courses, we learn how the world works, why the world works the way it does, why our experience, our human experience, is what it is. And we learn practices in how we can, if we want to see a world where there is no war, no poverty, no sickness, no death, we can create that world. We learn how to create that world. So that's the first reason, so that we ourselves learn the tools, learn the philosophy, the understanding, so that we can get ourselves out of the circle of suffering. And then the second reason for these courses is so that there are people, those who take the courses and do the homeworks and so on, who can pass along this knowledge to others. So that this wisdom, this understanding, this tool really to help a living being get out of suffering and to reach a place that is just bliss, then that's why we have these courses. So that you can teach other people in the future, however that is, whether it's at the kitchen table in casual conversation, you can share information. or whether you um, lead a more formal course like this one and have students and share these teachings with them like that. This experience we have now, and it's so very rare. We're healthy enough to come to class. Our minds are not only curious or interested in these topics, but they function well. We're not in such stress that we can't even uh, read or can't even contemplate how the world works. You're not too young to understand. You have language, you have reasoning skills that develop. You're an adult. You're not too old. I'm getting there. You're not senile or afflicted with some, mental issue. Uh, we have, here we are, people around the world. We're in different countries. We speak and understand different languages. But right now, we're all in the same place. We're all hearing what I'm speaking in a language we understand. This did not exist when I was first studying Buddhism. I had to get on a plane and go travel to a teacher. Sometimes I couldn't understand them because I didn't know their language. Now we just sit in front of our computers and instantly we're connected around the world, and we have these incredible beings who are translating live for us. It's really, it brings tears to my eyes. It's something uh, we should rejoice about over and over. This is really extraordinary. And personally, it sounds to me like we are getting closer and closer to the state of enlightenment. They say that when a Buddha speaks, um, this is without conscious thought, that everyone in the audience, no matter what language they speak, they hear her words in their language. They can understand. That's the power of a Buddha's speech. So what we've got going on here, it's like when kids play dress up, they dress up as different characters. I want to be an astronaut someday. So they dress up in astronaut clothes. It's like we're playing. We're playing dress up for what it will be like when a Buddha teaches. And I just think it's so cool. So thank you everyone for ripening this wonderful things. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the fun and exciting topic of what texts we're using. So the first text is called ch ngumpa z. Say ch ngumpa. It's a hard one. Ngumpa z. Ch means dharma. And I see I forgot to put some of the Tibetan in. I will update this document. But the definition of dharma is Rangi Ngo Zimpe La Che. And what that means is it's an existing thing and a thing that has its own nature. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. So that's one of the meanings of Che, is dharma or thing, any object that has its own nature, any existing thing. Sometimes it means Buddhist teaching. And there's a use of it in logic as well. That's very specific. So dharma. Lumpa. Lumpa means high. High. And z means treasure. Oh, I didn't put down this either. I'm so sorry. I will also add the Sanskrit, which for this book, which probably we've heard far more often than the Tibetan, and that's Abhidharma Kosha. And that's the original Sanskrit word. And the way that Geshe Michael translates this is the treasure house of higher knowledge. So he translates Shi Nunpa as higher knowledge. Shi Nunpa, higher knowledge. That's Abhidharma in Sanskrit. And Z as treasure house. And that's Kosha in Sanskrit. So when someone asks you what you're studying, you can say Ngumpa, which is knowledge. You can say Shi Ngumpa, which is higher knowledge. Or you can say Kosha, which is treasure house. And so this is a very, very famous book. People will understand what you're studying. This book was written by Lopen Yik Nyen. Lopen Yik Nyen. And we actually very rarely use the Tibetan translation of his name. Instead, we say Acharya Vasubandhu. Lopen Acharya, that means master, or like someone who is a scholar or a master of a topic. And then Vasubandhu is his name. Yik Nyen Vasubandhu. And he lived about 350 current era, very early Indian history. He had a brother who, Master Asanga, who was also a very important teacher for us. And they both gave us many commentaries and books, the ideas of which survive to this day that help us understand Sorry, I got muted for some reason. Am I talking too quickly? Okay. So that's the main text, or the root text for our course, is the Abhidharmakosha, written by Master Vasubandhu, 350 AD. Then we're also going to be studying from a commentary. And this was written by Gyalwa Gendin Drup. Gyalwa Gendin Drup. He lived 1391 to 1474. Gyalwa, it's one of the Tibetan words for Dalai Lama. It means victorious one, Gyalwa. Another word for the Dalai Lama is Kundun, Kundun, which means the presence. Another way we could say it is Gyalwa Rinpoche, which is the precious, victorious one. And then Gendin Drup, excuse me, is his name. And he was the first in the lineage of Dalai Lamas. So he was a student of Je Tsongkhapa. He was considerably younger than Je Tsongkhapa, 35, 40 years younger than him. So they weren't together very long. There are other students of Je Tsongkhapa's who are more famous. But that's really saying something, because the first Dalai Lama is famous too. Okay, the book he wrote that we're studying is called Sutuk Tarlam Selje. Oops. Sutuk Tarlam Selje. Tar is short for Tarpa. In Sanskrit, that's moksha, moksha, and that means freedom. Lam, which we know from a phrase, Lam Rim, steps of the path, we just talked about. So Lam means path, path. And Selje, Selje means that which makes clear. It's a word for a lamp or a light, illumination. The biggest Selje we have in our world is the sun, right? The sun is a Selje. Tzu we had up above, that means treasure house, right? Tik is actually a Sanskrit word, and it means commentary. So this is illumination of the path to freedom, a commentary on the treasure house. Illumination of the path to freedom. There are different Tarlam Seljes. It's actually a common title of books. Illumination of the path to freedom. The first book that I worked on translating was called Light on the Path to Freedom. So it's the same thing. Gyaltsab, one of the other students of Je Tsongkhapa, he wrote a book called Tarlam Selje. And it was on Buddhist logic. And we studied that, I believe, in course, I can't remember if we studied it in course 4 or if it's coming in course 13. But anyway, it's in the course series. So that's one of the commentaries that we're going to be using. And as I mentioned earlier, there are others that we'll be calling on others in other classes. Okay, so let's get into some content. So Buddhism says that within the realm of samsara, or suffering existence, within suffering existence, there are 3 realms: desire realm, form realm, and formless realm. Dukkam, that's desire realm. Du means desire. Kam means realm. It can mean just an area or a place. Form realm is Sukkam. Sukkam. And Suk form can have different meanings in English, and what we're referring to here is physical form, physical matter, physical stuff. Form realm. And then the third one is Sukme Kam. Sukme Kam. So the only difference is this part of the word, me. And me is one of the words used for negative or absences or non-existent things. Me. So this is formless realm. Sukmekam. Formless realm. And the beings who are in that realm don't have a body, don't have a physical body. They are, like 99% mental. There is still some very, very subtle physical form, but it's very, very, very subtle. It's like energy, not something that's concrete. And it's not something you could see. So let's talk about the form realm first. Sukkam. It's called the form realm because it's where form reaches its highest expression. Its most, you could say, divine expression. Although they're not necessarily divine, those beings who live in the form realm. But they all are hlas, which can mean angel or deva. but it's a temporary state. It's not a fully enlightened state. It's temporary. So remember, we're talking about suffering realms of existence. The beings who live in the form realm live for millions of years, for what would for us be millions of years. It's very, very pleasant. Those beings have everything they need. They're beautiful. They live a very long time. They're in comfort. They're enjoying themselves. Geshe Michael calls them pleasure beings so that we don't confuse them with Hlas or Devas who are Buddhas or tantric angels. So beings in this realm, the form realm, as you can imagine, if you are experiencing all good things, you know, never any disappointments, never any hunger, never any, you know, hardship of any kind, that takes a lot of very powerful positive seeds to create that mental image, right? So beings in this realm are burning up good karma. And they live for millions of years. It's a tremendous amount of good karma that a being in the form realm is using up. If you think of, like, from the mind only school perspective, that we've got a storehouse consciousness that's holding all of our seeds. You know, you could look and say, okay, I've got this pile of good seeds and I've got this pile of bad seeds, and you know, I got to keep making more good seeds, and I've got to purify the bad seeds. If you're up in the form realm, you're burning up good seeds at a very high rate. They're burning up. And you're not creating new ones mainly because you don't care, because everything's going well. Everything's beautiful. So you just burn up all those powerful, positive seeds. And then in the next life, people fall down to a lower rebirth. So the formless realm, I got this picture because it kind of shows. So this was the picture. This is like a picture. This is what you envision when you do a mandala offering. And here is our world. And there are different continents in our world. They have different shapes. And then above our world, in these like rows of clouds, that's the form realm. So it's above our world. And it has, I'm not sure what's going on in this painting, but in the description of it, there are 17 levels in the form realm. And it's talked about in the reading that you have for today. So there's actually 4 levels in the form realm. And then each of those levels has sub-levels, and those add up to 17. Now, what are the levels? They are Samten. Samten. Samten is a level of meditation, and there are 4 deep meditation levels that you can reach in meditation. As we talked about in course 3, we want to reach a state where our mind is completely still and that is full of energy. Our mind is bright. It is happy, not happy, haha, but bright and happy, focused on an object. We want to reach what's called the preliminary stage of the first of the 4 samtens, the first of the 4 levels of deep meditation, just the preliminary stage, just to get there. In order to see emptiness directly, in order to have a state of mind that stays with our object, which is the absence of self-existence of me, Utpala. Each of you will do that for your own self, the emptiness of you. But we only want to reach the preliminary stage of that first level. If we go deeper, it can be a heck of a lot more pleasant experience, which is the danger. That's the danger for us. But each level gets more and more at the preliminary level. We have an object, and we are engaged in that object, and there is like an energy associated with being engaged with that object, even though it's steady and not moving. The mind is not wavering. There's still an energy there. The mind is very bright. The deeper we go, if we continue on to higher levels, the mind, it becomes more and more like the object becomes more and more just an absence. It's a different kind of absence, so it's tricky to talk about. It becomes like blank or nothing when we're meditating on emptiness. We're meditating on a specific lack, a specific absence. And that absence is the absence of a me, of an Utpala, who could exist from her own side. That's a very specific absence. The higher levels that we could get into, that are possible to get into, that lack or absence or nothing is more just blank. It's just an empty screen. And as an object, just an empty screen is not helpful. So how you get to the form, or how we could get to the form realm, and you don't want to get to the form realm, is that we spend time now while we're in the desire realm. Excuse me. In deep meditation and in these very, very deep levels of meditation. Those create the causes to be reborn in the form realm. So they talk about causal form realm and resulting form realm. So while we're here in meditation, if we advance beyond that preliminary stage, we are creating, our mind, you could say, is in the causal form realm. Or you could say our mind is in a state of meditation that will cause rebirth in the form realm. They say, oh, our mind is in the form realm, even though our body is in the desire realm. Geshe Michael talks about how after his direct perception of emptiness, he had the not physical sensation, but a sensation of coming down. His mind came down from that preliminary level of the form realm, but that was a causal form realm level. In other words, it wasn't being reborn there yet, but it was creating the causes to be reborn there. I hope that makes sense. Causal and resultant. It might be easier if we didn't use the word realm when we're talking about meditation. But if we instead just called it I don't know what, it's still tricky. It's still tricky. It's a level of meditation which acts as a cause for being reborn in the form realm. Okay, so there's 17 total of all the sub-levels together. So there are 4 main levels in the form realm. The first 3 each have 3 sublevels. And the 3 are the same for each of the 3, the sublevels. Deep, very deep, and extremely deep. So if you're on the first level, you start off at the deep sublevel, and then you advance to the very deep sublevel of the first level. And then you advance to the extremely deep sublevel of the first level. And then, as you imagine, you advance to the first of the 3 levels of the second level, right? We advance from the 3rd level of the first level, and then we go to the first or the deep level of the second form realm. And it continues like that. So each of the first three of the four levels of the form realm, each has three parts. So that's a total of 9. And each of the three, the sub-levels are the same. Deep, very deep, extremely deep. Now the fourth level has 8 levels. So that's how we get to 17. And I'm not going to go into detail on those 8. They are discussed, although briefly, in your reading. It's just things get more and more and more subtle, more deep, more, I don't know, you could say more exquisite as a resulting form realm experience. So just to say once again that deep, deep, deep levels of meditation, focusing on nothing at all, or a blank screen, or black. This is called Chiang Mai. Focusing on nothing. Just empty your mind of all thoughts. Empty your experience of all sensations. Just empty, empty, empty. Think of nothing at all. You can do that. I say kind of. Your mind needs an object. But anyway, this was a popular idea back in ancient times. And there was, it was very popular idea that this is what the Buddha meant in terms of meditation, that we need to empty our mind and think about nothing. And there was a debate back in these old days when you had different ideas about what the teachings meant. If people held different ideas, like the highest scholars of those ideas, the king would call them together and say, okay, debate. And whoever wins the debate, that's what we're going to practice. And there happened to be someone, I forget his name. I always forget his name. But he came, and then Master Kamala Shila, who's a name you may have heard of. He has written a lot about meditation. So those two people were called to debate. The one who advocated Chiang Mai, nothing at all. We should meditate on nothing at all. And Master Kamala Shila, who said, oh, we need an object meditation, and we need to we need to get to a state where we can meditate on the absence of the self. And those two debated, and Master Kamala Shila won. So Chiang Mai went by the wayside. Just as an interesting aside, as I went looking for how to spell this word, I was having a hard time finding it. And so I went to Google and I just wrote in how it sounded. Chi Young Mei. And up came a temple in Thailand called Chiang Mai. And I wondered, this is a Tibetan phrase. So to have that be a word in a whole other language, Thailand, I just am really curious. If anyone knows the Thai language, if you could tell me what the sounds Chiang Mai mean. I was just surprised. Anyway, that's just a silly aside. So the form realm has 17, total of 17 sublevels. And you read about them in your reading. And it's the meditations we do here in the desire realm that create the causes for us to be born in the form realm, the resultant form realm. So they are physical beings. It is physical place, up above us, kind of like the Christian idea of heaven. We're born there. We don't create any negative deeds. We're just burning up our good karma. We have a very smooth life, very blissful life. And then finally we die and we go to the lower realms. The qualities that characterize the form realm is that everything is very, very beautiful. People who live in the form realm have a tendency that comes from their past lives. And this tendency is that they're not attracted to objects of the senses. Like for us in the desire realm, we're very attracted to objects of the senses. But the more we meditate, the more we could say shutting down, the more we're not focusing on objects of the senses, right? We're not focusing on smells or tastes or sound. We're focusing on our mental object. So the people who are in the form realm, they're not attracted to objects of the senses, even though they're so beautiful. They are beyond desire. Desire as we know it, they don't have. And the form realm is characterized by consisting of objects that can lead to the development of particular mental afflictions that can occur at that level. And I mean, we just said that they're not doing much in terms of creating positive seeds, right? But there can be some negativities. And for example, well, we'll get into that more later. Okay. Can we see this realm? No, we can't see it. Can we go there? Yes, we can go there in the sense that our mind can be in a state of meditation that would bring the results of being born in the form realm. So yes, we can get our mind into that kind of meditation. Is it always a bad thing to have deep meditation? No, because we need to be able to get to the preliminary level, preliminary to the first level, in order to see emptiness directly. So we have to be able to touch that first level. Now we're going to talk more about the desire realm. There are 6 kinds of beings in the desire realm. In the form realm, we had only one kind of being, pleasure being. That's it. In the desire realm, there are 6 kinds of beings. Sometimes they say 5, but we'll talk about that. So here are the basic kind of beings. First is hell being. Second kind of being, craving spirit, or yira. These are, so the hell beings, sorry to back up, the hell beings are in constant pain. And the major hells are hot. There are other hells that are cold. There are some hells that are dry. There are some hells where mountains come together and squish hell beings, and it happens over and over. You're like born into a hell. You experience this incredible pain and suffering. You die, and you're immediately reborn, and that happens over and over and over for millions of years. Nothing but pain and suffering. Craving spirits. These are beings who are like very stingy in their past lives. They if you think about like how dragons are portrayed in like Lord of the Rings, there's this dragon who lives in a cave, and it's a huge cave, and he piles it up with gold and jewels and all these precious gems, and he hoards them. He doesn't allow anyone to come and take a single coin. This dragon just collects coins and piles them up. So it's like that kind of thinking where, oh, you have resources, you have plenty of resources, but you don't share with people who need help. So anyway, these kinds of beings create that kind of activity creates the experience of being born as a craving spirit, a kind of being who's never satisfied, who is constantly wanting more and more and more. When they eat, they can't feel satiated. Like their throats are so narrow, food can't go down their throats. Or they go to take a drink, and what looks like cool water turns into gross pus and blood when they bring it up to their lips. So like they can never get satisfaction. Animals we can see. Finally, here's a type of being that we're familiar with. Buddhism says the majority of animals in the desire realm are the animals who live in the oceans, that there are just huge, massive numbers of animals that live in the oceans, even more than the ones who live on the earth or fly in the air. And animals live in constant fear. because bigger animals can want to eat them. So they're constantly looking out to get to safety in case someone bigger comes along. So that's their whole life, living in fear. Humans is the fourth kind. And we live, as the picture showed, there are these different continents. And we'll talk more about that later. And then 5, which is sometimes considered 2 types of beings, but the 5th type of being are pleasure beings. And these are people like really wealthy people who, like superheroes kind of people. They're beautiful, they're strong, they're healthy, they have everything they want. And then there's another type of pleasure being, which is right underneath the top level pleasure being. And those pleasure beings are very jealous. Like, oh, I wish my hair was that blonde. It's not that blonde. So I'm jealous of this other person who has the golden blonde hair or whatever. So there's a distinction between these pleasure beings that are in the desire realm and the pleasure beings who are in the form realm. They are different. There are, in the desire realm, there are 6 kinds of pleasure being. In the form realm, there are 17 kinds of pleasure being. So pleasure being is a being who can exist in the desire realm or in the formless realm. So they're the only kind of being who can take birth in a different realm, who can be in the desire realm, the form realm, for example. We might think that a person a human being in the desire realm who's in a state of meditation in the direct perception of emptiness. Some people say, oh, their mind is in the form realm, while their body is in the desire realm. But there's a debate about that. Some people say, no, their mind is in a state of meditation that is the causal form realm. It's the state of meditation that causes the result of eventually being born in the form realm. So it's just weird distinctions, and just understand there are these different ways. Now there's a way that we can divide the desire realm into 20. And I'll just go through this quickly. It's I believe it's also in your reading. Here's the way we get to 20 types of beings in the desire realm. So first we talk about, let me go to this picture. Come on. So in the wheel of life, these, like this is one desire realm, this or the one type of being, this is one type of being, this is one type of being. So you got 6 sections here. And the sections that are above the line, these are all higher rebirths in the form realm, or I'm sorry, in the desire realm. And these 3 down here are 3 lower rebirths in the desire realm. So these are, as we talked about, we've got hells, we've got craving spirits, and we've got animals. Those are all what they call lower rebirths in the desire realm. And then higher rebirths would be humans and the 2 types of pleasure beings. We've got our high pleasure beings and our, they call them demigods sometimes, pleasure beings who are jealous of the high pleasure beings. So to get to 20, if we divide higher rebirths and lower rebirths into 10 each, then we get to 20. So who are the 10 lower rebirths? In the hell realm, there are 8 different kinds of hell, 8 different kinds of hot hell. There are many other kinds of hells too, but the main ones are these 8 hot hells. So that gives us 8. We only need 2 more to get to 10. And those are craving spirits and animals. So that's the 10 types of beings in the desire realm that are in lower rebirths. 8 types of hell beings, craving spirits, and animals. Then we go to the higher kinds of rebirth. We have humans. There are 4 different kinds of humans. Humans can be born on one of 4 different continents. These different shaped things. We can't see the 4th set because it's behind Mount Meru. So there are 4 types of humans. Then there are 6 kinds of pleasure beings in the desire realm. We're not going to get into details of who they are, but they have different abilities. Like some can create, just by thinking, they can create something and then use it. They have that kind of power. There are other kinds of pleasure beings who, if someone else thinks of something, they can use that. So there are different levels. So that's how you get to 20. And I'm so sorry, but I'm up against the edge of our time together. And I don't want to misuse your time. So I will finish this on Friday, our next class. I'll finish talking about this desire realm, then I'll talk about Oakman and how we create all these different realms. So please remember to dedicate our time together towards reaching your highest goals. Okay. And I will see you all on Friday. Thank you so much.
Благодарим, дорогая Утпала.
Благодарим вас.
Благодарим дорогих переводчиков. Тоже благодарим.